Hi, this is the History of Israel podcast, an Each My Own Beat podcast. Over the coming weeks, months, and years, we'll be discussing the history of Israel. This is not a podcast to say which side is right, which side is wrong. It's not a podcast to talk about the war which is happening in Palestine. It's just simply the history of Israel.
In 1095, one speech changed the course of history. Pope Urban II stood before a crowd at the Council of Clermont and launched a chain of events that would reshape both Europe and the Middle East for centuries. Today, we're diving into the First Crusade and the incredible story of how it led to the creation of a Christian kingdom in Jerusalem.
And what a story it is. You know, this wasn't just some small expedition. We're talking about 60,000 people, including 6,000 knights, marching thousands of miles into completely unfamiliar territory.
That's a massive undertaking for the 11th century. What exactly prompted this huge mobilization?
Well, it's fascinating because there were multiple factors at play. The immediate trigger was that Jerusalem had fallen to the Seljuk Turks in 1087, and they were threatening the Byzantine Empire.
So the Byzantines asked for help?
Exactly. Emperor Alexios I Komnenos actually reached out to the Pope for support. But Urban II saw an opportunity to achieve multiple goals. He wanted to cement Rome's authority and potentially heal the split between Roman Catholic and Byzantine Orthodox churches.
Interesting. And this wasn't just nobles and knights joining up, right?
No, it became known as the People's Crusade because so many common folks joined. There was this French priest, Peter the Hermit, who led a whole army of commoners through Europe.
So what happened when they actually reached the Holy Land?
Well, it was remarkably successful, actually. They captured Nicaea in 1097, then Edessa and Antioch in 1098. But the big prize was Jerusalem.
Tell me about that siege. How did they manage to take such a well-defended city?
The siege of Jerusalem was brutal. It started in June 1099, and on July 15th, they finally breached the walls. The victory was complete, but it's worth noting that it ended in a massacre of the Muslim and Jewish defenders.
That's sobering. But this victory led to the creation of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, right?
Yes, and here's where it gets really interesting. They needed someone to rule this new kingdom, and the first choice, Raymond of Toulouse, actually turned it down.
Really? Why would someone turn down being King of Jerusalem?
It might have been religious humility or political calculation. We're not entirely sure. But this opened the door for Godfrey of Bouillon.
And Godfrey's an interesting character. I heard he was actually related to Charlemagne?
Yes, and he later became idealized in legend as the perfect Christian knight. Tall, handsome, fair-haired, he was seen as this peerless hero of the whole crusading epic.
But he didn't actually take the title of king, did he?
No, he chose to be called the Advocate of the Holy Sepulchre instead. It was a fascinating choice that showed his religious humility. He didn't want to wear a crown of gold where Christ had worn a crown of thorns.
That's quite poetic. How did he actually get chosen for the role?
Well, unlike the hereditary monarchies in Europe, Godfrey was elected by the Crusader princes and clergy. It was unprecedented. Establishing a Latin Christian government in the Holy Land required a new approach.
So what did this new kingdom actually look like?
It was essentially a strip of coastal land from Jaffa in the south to Beirut in the north. Jerusalem itself had a population of about 20,000, which grew to 30,000 over the next century.
That seems pretty small for a kingdom.
True, but it was just one of 4 Crusader states established in the region. You had the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the County of Edessa, the Principality of Antioch, and the County of Tripoli.
How did they manage to govern these territories?
They set up a feudal system with a royal council and local governors. But here's something fascinating. French became the common language, with Latin as the official language.
Wait, French? Not Latin?
Right. The majority of Crusaders were from France, so Old French became the lingua franca of the Crusader states. It's a great example of how European culture was transplanted to the Middle East.
How did the local population react to all this?
You know, here's something that might surprise you. From the Islamic perspective, the Crusades were more of an irritant than an existential threat.
Really? Even with all these kingdoms being established?
Yes, because at this time, the Islamic world was actually a global center of trade and learning. They dominated trade routes to China and India, preserved classical knowledge, and made advances in science and medicine.
While Europe was
relatively backward, a region of small, feuding principalities dealing with widespread illiteracy and superstition.
That puts things in a different perspective. How long did these Crusader states actually last?
Well, they fell one by one. Edessa was first in 1144, then Antioch in 1268, Tripoli in 1289, and finally Jerusalem fell to the Mamluk Sultanate in 1291.
So what were the main challenges they faced?
They were constantly dealing with dynastic rivalries, lack of manpower, and insufficient support from Europe. Plus, they faced some formidable Muslim leaders like Zangi, Nur ad-Din, and Saladin.
But they managed to hold on for quite a while, didn't they?
Almost 2 centuries. And during that time, they actually developed quite sophisticated systems of government and military organization.
Like what?
Well, they created military orders like the Knights Templar and Knights Hospitaller, which later inspired the formation of chivalric orders like the Order of the Garter in England.
So their influence extended well beyond the Holy Land.
Absolutely. The Crusader states became this fascinating hybrid of European and Middle Eastern culture, influencing everything from architecture to military tactics.
What about trade and commerce?
The Italian city-states of Venice, Genoa, and Pisa played a huge role there. Their fleets were crucial for maintaining these coastal territories and facilitating trade.
So it wasn't just about religious control of the Holy Land.
No, there were definitely economic and political dimensions. The Crusader states became important trading hubs between Europe and the East.
How did they maintain their population? Did people keep coming from Europe?
That was actually one of their biggest challenges. By 1130, very few people among the Franks were actual crusaders. They had to rely on a constant flow of new settlers and military support.
And I imagine that support wasn't always reliable.
Exactly. The enthusiasm for crusading tended to wax and wane in Europe, which made it hard to maintain consistent defense of these territories.
Let's talk about Jerusalem itself. What was it like under Christian rule?
The city became this remarkable blend of cultures. You had European-style churches and fortifications alongside existing Muslim and Jewish architecture.
Was there any attempt at peaceful coexistence?
It varied over time. Godfrey actually made treaties with Muslim cities like Ascalon, Caesarea, and Acre, but religious tensions were always simmering beneath the surface.
What do you think is the most lasting legacy of the Kingdom of Jerusalem?
I'd say it's the demonstration of how different cultures can influence each other, even in times of conflict. The kingdom became this unique fusion of East and West.
Even though it ultimately didn't last?
Right. The physical kingdom may have fallen, but its cultural impact continued through literature, architecture, and ideas that flowed between Europe and the Middle East.
It's amazing how one speech by Pope Urban II set all this in motion.
And created ripples that we can still see today in everything from military orders to trading patterns between Europe and the Middle East.
This has been the History of Israel podcast. Check back every Wednesday for new episodes. We're available on Apple, iTunes, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. We also have each episode streaming on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, and share. We're available on eattomyownbeat.com as well as the History of Israel podcast on Facebook.